Hey, you guys, today we have such a treat. We have Kristen Maple here with us to talk about the Aroma Freedom Technique. Welcome to the podcast, Kristen.
Thank you, Meg. I'm so excited to be here. I've been looking forward to this.
I am so excited. You guys, we have had so many obstacles to get this interview set up. We both have had to move around our schedules and we're finally doing it. I'm so giddy about this and I love to learn. And so I'm trying to not be like all over the place asking a million questions so that everyone can follow along. But this is just going to be so amazing because I personally got into essential oils for emotions and my immune system, but I was really, really interested in the emotions side of it. And so this is just going to be incredible. So thank you so much for being here.
Oh, you're so welcome. It just fills me up to share this because it's changed my life so much. So I'm really excited to share it with you guys and to do whatever I can to help.
Yeah. Okay. So I wanted to kind of right out the gate tell you guys that we're talking about the Aroma Freedom Technique today, and we'll probably bounce back and forth between saying Aroma Freedom Technique and AFT. And I always hate when people use acronyms, and I'm like, what does that even stand for? So when you hear AFT, that's what we're referring to is the Aroma Freedom Technique. So let's just go right into it. Can you kind of share a backstory of how you came to be an Aroma Freedom practitioner?
Sure. A little bit. Do you want me to share a little bit, just a snippet of what AFT is, just so people understand it? And then
Yeah,
just,
definitely.
just sharing that might help me segue into how I started. In a nutshell, AFT is a 12-step process that was developed by Dr. Benjamin Perkis that helps people let go of any blocks or emotions or thoughts that are keeping us stuck and preventing us from moving forward.
Mm.
And so for my in my history of life, I have a background of going into 12-step program and kind of a tumultuous childhood and a lot of emotional trauma and emotions that I needed to work through. And so when I fell into oils, I fell into it for health reasons, a lot of anxiety, which obviously ties to emotions and all that stuff. And a lot of my children were colicky, and so
Mhm.
I fell into it that way and then fell into the community. And then in the community, Casey Wiegand is my upline. She had someone come on to share about AFT and was starting to talk about what it was and how the oils, our sense of smell is connected to our amygdala, the part of the brain where negative emotions and traumas are stored, and how when you can access that and release your emotions, how it frees you up to do the things you want to do. And at this time, I'm super into personal development and personal growth and doing everything I can to create a different life for my babies than the one that I had. So
Yeah.
this has always just been my passion. And so I jumped on a webinar with her, and I saw a live session done for a girl, and just watching her transformation from where she started till the end of the session, I was just blown away of the freedom and the peace and the light that she emanated just in that 60-minute live session. And I just knew it was like one of those things. I knew I needed to do this. I wanted to learn more, and she was offering to teach people how to learn this technique and then how to teach it to people. um,
Wow.
and I was just fascinated by the science and I knew I loved oils, but then this brought it to a whole new level of just opened a whole other world to me, and so many more tools, and was helping me transform my life in such a profound, fast way, much quicker than what I was able to do with the things that I was currently working on with 12-step and therapy. And not
Wow.
say it's going to replace those things, but anyways, we can get into all of those. But I just
Mhm.
loved it. I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Now I love oils even more.
Yeah. That's beautiful. And it is so true that like when we find something that is so inspiring to us, I'm definitely someone that's like, this is hard for me to not go tell everyone else.
Oh, you
You
can't.
know?
And I think
Yeah.
that's why people love oils just in general, because it's this freedom of, look it, we don't have to stay in bondage to this like these ideas, these old ideas, and it's so freeing and healthy. And
Right.
yeah, and then when you find that, yeah, and then when you get free of that emotional bondage, it's like you can't
Yeah.
not want to stand out and scream it off the mountaintops. That's for certain.
Yeah, seriously. Okay, so let's go into more what Aroma Freedom Technique is, how it works, where it came from, all of that.
Okay, so I'm sorry to say, I know I kind of mentioned a little bit of in the beginning,
Oh
but
no, you're fine.
so it is a technique developed by Dr. Benjamin Perkis. He was a EFT, EMDR psychologist for like 20, 25 years. And
Wow.
he started using essential oils with his EFT practice and EMDR, and he was discovering that the oils he was having more success with his patients because of the effects that it does have on the brain to access that part. It's scientifically proven that when you breathe in scent, it is one of the only things that can access trauma and negative emotions. And so when he was able to implement that into his practice, he saw drastic results with his patients. And then the more he used it and the more he started seeing people's lives transform and break free from things so quickly, he decided, I need to get this out. Like, you just have to share it. Like we just said, you have to get it out there and share.
Yeah.
So he started sharing it and started a certification program to get it in the hands of practitioners who could also spread it far and wide. And that's always been his mission, is to help free as many people as he can and get into the hands of as many people possible. So he wrote a book called The Aroma Freedom Technique. And it's a 12-step process that basically walks people through. It's super gentle and easy. You just follow these steps and use your oils. And it's similar to a guided meditation in a sense. That's kind of how I attribute. And you walk through and it's something that I can't really put into words how it works. Sometimes I feel like it's something higher, like a higher,
Yeah.
like something above, like God or whatever your beliefs are. I mean, there's no doubt to me, like that's what, it's just powerful in that way.
Yeah.
The spiritual shift that happens, the emotional shift that happens, it's profound. So
It really is.
I don't know if that explains, but that's where it started.
Okay.
And then your other question.
Yeah. So let's kind of go those 12 steps. Obviously, Kristen was telling me before the show, you guys, that a session takes around like over an hour. Is that correct? Like a thorough session?
Yeah, if to do an aroma freedom session, it's about an hour.
Yeah.
There's also other techniques as well. So there's the aroma freedom technique, which is helping you move through anything that is keeping you stuck in life. So what happens is in our life, if something, if we touch a hot stove, for example, your brain is going to say, don't touch that stove again. And it's going to prevent you from doing that. Like, okay, do not touch the hot stove. It's filed in your memory. And that's what keeps you safe. And so our subconscious mind, which is responsible for 98% of our actions and what we do, controls everything. And so these events get stored in your subconscious mind. When you are able to release or rewrite that story in your subconscious mind. So let's say if your story was the stove is hot, but you want to tell yourself, like, let's replace that now and say, I am successful, or I am let's say you have a story or something happened to you where you were embarrassed. It's going to prevent you from putting yourself out there subconsciously. And you're going to look at people to your left and right and go, well, they're thriving and they're doing this and they're following the same book. It's like, if you were to read a book and I was to read a book, but my story is different than your story, your chances of success are going to be a lot different than my chances of success, because your mental story is different, and it's going to allow you to take the action, whereas someone else may be trying to keep them safe or comfortable.
Wow.
So what AFT does is it helps you identify those stories and then break them down and lessen the charge so that they no longer have a hold on you and they're no longer keeping you hostage. There's just so much.
Yeah.
It's truly mind-blowing, and it's so freeing, and it's such a gift. You can apply it to everything in your life. I mean, in your marriage, I had things with my marriage that I was seeing subconsciously. I was not aware, but we were having a really hard time.
Mm-hmm.
I did an AFT session on it. And just to be transparent, like there's an AFT, you can rate something on a scale of 0 to 10, like how possible does it feel for you? And the session that I wanted to do on my husband was, my intention was, I love my husband. And I'm just going to be like straight up, like, this is what. So my intention was, I love my husband. But when I rated that, if how true or possible that was for me in that moment, because I really wanted to love him and have a good relationship with him, but it was a negative too. Like I was not anywhere near. I wanted to ship him off to another country. I didn't want nothing to do with him.
Mm-hmm.
So I did my session on that goal. And I was blown away of what came up for me. I was on my knees, just like sobbing. I can't believe that this is what I was carrying. And there was basically an image of my life and my childhood, of my mom and certain things that had happened in our life. And she always had this story of she used a profound, like a 4-letter word.
Yeah.
Describing them. So, her profanity was subconsciously, that was the story that I held on to. And I said, okay, men are the 4-letter word. Mm-hmm. Even though I didn't want to believe that in my heart, subconsciously, that was my truth. And so I would do things that was causing him to show up for me as that 4-letter word, because that was my reality and that was my truth. Once I was able to see that and let that go, I have goosebumps just talking about it right now. But it transformed everything. It transformed my whole marriage, my life, and that thought of, no matter where you are, no matter where you go, there you are. So we think like, oh, it's that person's got to change, or this job has got to change, or maybe it's just not. When ultimately it's usually us. There's usually some kind of programming or thought or way that we're showing up that is reflecting outwardly.
Wow. That's not even my story. And I had chills that I was like, don't cry on the podcast. But that is beautiful. And you guys, like, there have been times when I'm learning about oils and I'm like, okay, this is like woo woo. But just like hang with us if you're feeling that way, because we're going to get into the science more later. Like, okay, but how does it work? But that is just such a beautiful story. So we're not going to do a full like AFT session today, but could you just kind of like touch on so when people think like, well, what are these 12 steps? Can you just kind of like list them out, kind of like, this is how it works, just so they can get a good kind of picture of what a session would look like?
Sure, absolutely. So I went off on a whole tangent and I'm so sorry. But the AFT technique, there's the AFT, which is the main, and then there's a boost if they want just something like a quick procrastination to get through. Those are all separate, but the main AFT, I can share with you how to go through those. There's also a technique that you would do to curb cravings. So if you're feeling like you have a craving that you want to get through or you're struggling with, it's always tied to emotion or subconscious belief that we usually end up using any kind of vice for. And then there's also a trauma. So it's called TMRT, which is trauma and memory release. And that is for if you have any kind of traumatic event in your life or something that when you think about it, it brings up a lot of strong emotion that you're having a hard time processing or moving through. It's keeping you a little almost paralyzed. You can do that. So that is a separate one. But for the Aroma Freedom Technique, that one is specifically, like I was saying, if there's any blocks or things that are preventing you from showing up or having the life that you want to have, and rewiring that subconscious. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is you're going to want to get really, like anything in life, you're going to want it really clear on what's your intention. So who do you want to be today, right now in this moment, even if it seems completely impossible? And ideally you want to grab something that feels impossible or feels very far-fetched, because you want to identify why. Like, why is it that feels so far away from you? Why does it feel so far away that you can't be successful, or that you can't have a good relationship, or that you can't be healthy or stick to your goals or have good habits?
Right.
And when you get to identify why that is in your heart, then you can free it and let it go. So the first one is, you would say it in a first person as if it's happening now. So let's say, I if you wanted to do it as, we'll just use my husband as an example, that story I gave. I have a loving relationship, or I love so-and-so, or I am in a healthy relationship, or I make such and such money by such and such date.
Oh.
You're saying it, I am, as if it's happening right now. And what that does is it tells your subconscious where you want it to go. And then the second step is you're going to first use your intention, what you want, and then you're going to rate it. So how true or possible does that feel on a scale of 0 to 10? And you want it to be something that's a 5 or below. If you're at between a 8 and a 10, I mean a 5 and an 8, that's absolutely fine. But you want it to be something that feels not absolutely impossible. Like you don't want to say, okay, I make $1 million by tomorrow.
Right.
You want it to be somewhat realistic, but you also want it to feel very far-fetched. That's something that brings up an emotion in you where you feel some kind of butterfly or nervousness or anxiety when you think about something that makes you a little nervous, something that scares you. You know, we all have those things that scare us, right? That we want to take the leap, and it's like, leap and the net will appear. Well, what's that thing that you want to take the leap on? What's that thing that gives you butterflies? And the butterflies are there to, you know, just like sometimes an indication of change is just scary for us. There was a thing that someone said something about, I just read it recently, but they said, we're not hardwired to be happy. We're hardwired to be comfortable. And so we will keep doing things that make us stay comfortable or safe, opposed to the thing that's actually going to make us happy, which is leaping, you know, taking that leap, putting ourselves out there. So what AFT does is it helps you take the leap, take the charge off.
Yeah.
So that second step, how true or possible is it for you now? And then you're going to identify the thought. So when you say, okay, it's about maybe a 2 or a 3. So for me, mine was a -2. Why is it a -2? And then I think it was like the 3rd or 4th round with my husband, that phrase came up that I used to always hear my mom say. And it was, he is an 4-letter word. But it was actually a longer word. It was like the A word with the hole at the end. So that was the thought that came up as to why I had a bad relationship.
Yeah.
And it just, you learn to trust your intuitive thought. So you're going with that very first thought or emotion, or the thought that comes up as to why it's not possible. And then once you go with that, then you identify how it makes you feel. So when I say that he's a jerk, it made me feel really angry or sad or wherever it is. And then you identify where you're feeling that in your body. So it's really helping you connect mind, body, spirit. Everything's connected, brings you right here in the center, grounded. And then once you've identified where you're feeling it, the thought, how you're feeling about it, you're going to drift back right in that moment to an earlier time where you felt this exact same way. So where did you feel that emotion? And where did you feel that sensation in your body? And you want to go to that first memory. And for whatever reason, you just sit there and you go to that memory, or something comes up. Sometimes the memory won't come up, sometimes it will. But for the most part, a memory or a series of memories will come up. And then you put a drop of essential oils, and typically you want to do the frankincense, stress away, and lavender. Those are the memory release blend from Dr. Benjamin Purkis. And you'd put those in your palm, cup your hands over your nose and your mouth, and then you just breathe in. Like you just breathe into that emotion, you breathe into the thought, and then you just let it happen. It's very bizarre, but your mind kind of will start either bringing up other memories, other emotions. You may feel your emotions start to intensify. You might feel sad, you might feel angry, whatever it is, but you're basically purging whatever your body has been holding on to or storing so that you can break free from it. And so it no longer has a hold on you anymore. And then oftentimes you will see images or memories or whatever, and you'll get some insights. So for me, for example, I went through a lot of memories as a child is what it brought me to. You know, when I was breathing in, it just subconsciously, my mind kind of knew where to take me. It's like, okay, I remember this. Like it's almost like giving your subconscious this, it's like little army people, and you give it the oil and you tell it the emotion, you tell it where you feel it, and it goes, oh, okay, I know where to find that in the file cabinet. Right. So it takes you back to these little memories, and then you breathe in and it kind of just lessons at charge. But as you see them, you're given, there's some insights that happen and intuitive thoughts that happen and inner knowings that happen that you can't ever really get to even in a talking to somebody, and like in
Right.
therapy. That's why I think for me, therapy sometimes, this is not to replace therapy in any way, shape, or form, but
Mhm.
I do feel that there's things that we intuitively know and healing that we can intuitively can happen uh,
Mhm.
on our own without being told something from somebody else. So it helps us
Right.
really connect to our own truth in those steps.
Yeah.
Um,
Wow.
and then once you, so anyways, there's a series of steps that you get guided through in a session. And once you've identified those, experienced it, and then you breathe in until you feel the memory is gone as far as it can go, then you check in again and you say, okay, now where am I on the scale of 0 to 10? How true or possible does this feel? And then if it's not close to an 8 or above, you do another round and you just keep doing it until you're like an 8 or 9 or 10. And that thing that felt like it was a -0 or 1 or 2 now feels extremely possible, and you feel on fire and you feel free and liberated, and you're like, oh my gosh, like how did I not feel like I could do this? But now I feel like I can show up
Right.
and do this today.
Right. That is, oh my gosh. It is so cool. I bought the AFT book like a couple of
Hmm.
years ago, and it
Hmm.
had, the 12 steps in the back. And I took like an empty lavender bottle and ripped the label off and just mixed like equal parts stress away lavender and frankincense for the memory release blend. And the
Yeah.
smell, you guys, like if you've never made it, is unlike, it's like hard to explain, but I brought it with me to a therapy session of my own, and I would like put it on beforehand. And prior to, like, we didn't do an AFT session or anything, but I thought it was very interesting that like prior to doing that, I would kind of come in with like, I want her to like me and I don't want her to think I'm crazy. So I just like, oh, everything's fine. And when I would kind of put that on, it would not only allow me to like let my guard down, but also like allow my subconscious to even like let things come up.
Hmm.
So that's kind of like a side tangent, but
Hmm.
I don't want people listening thinking like this is so woo woo, but like we're these essential oils that you're using this whole time, right? So people during these 12 steps, they'll be using oils along with, like setting the intention and that kind of thing, right?
Yeah, so you use the oils, you breathe them in each round. You can
Yeah.
use them initially if you're having a hard time deciding what it is that you want. You can use a clarity oil or any other oil and just, put your hand on your heart and one hand on your belly, or cup a hand over your nose and your mouth, put the hand on your belly, and then breathe in and just get still. And when we get still, the oils do help us find our truth and what our hearts really are wanting.
Yeah. Okay, so this is a perfect transition, like to talk about the science behind AFT. Can you kind of get into like really the how it works?
The how of it, honestly, it feels like it's something that I don't really, it's one of those things you can't really describe how.
Mhm, mhm.
Like, I
Yeah.
know the science of it, there was a study done at New York University where they discovered that the only thing that can access the amygdala, the part of the brain where negative emotions and memories are stored, is through our sense of smell. So, just like when your grandmother or someone in your life bakes cookies, or you always, a certain smell, you always know that like a smell comes up and it reminds you of somebody or something, or it brings you back. Smell is very, very powerful and is very deeply connected to emotion. Whenever you do smell something that smells familiar, there usually is an emotion that's attached to it. And that's
Yeah.
because it has been accessed in the part of the brain where your fight or flight, it's basically your fight or flight mechanism is stored. So that's where it's basically what controls our subconscious mind, which and then controls our actions or how we show up in the world. And so the science in terms of anything further than that, that's pretty much how
No,
that
that's
works.
yeah.
It helps to identify what you're feeling and then release them. I don't know if there's a lot of books on the essential oils and emotions, and how our emotions have memory, or our body has memory. And a lot of times, if we're not able to process an emotion, we will store it in our body. So they say a lot of times if there's problems with liver, it's a lot of anger or, certain things. So if you're sick or ill in some way, usually it's attached to some kind of unresolved emotion. And if you can let that go or process it, there's just a lot of freedom that happens. I don't know why this is the way it is, but it's just been shown over and over and time again. Whenever you're able to identify and let go, it just, health happens, healing happens, freedom, emotional, psychological. That's why we go to therapy, all of it. But what I love about it is that it's not talk therapy. When I do a session with my clients, they'll be sharing stuff with me, but I'm not a therapist, so I don't give any input back. I don't say, okay, well, what about this in your life or that? I let them just go through the process themselves. And it's amazing what comes up, like the insight. And it's stuff that I wanted to say, but as a practitioner, I can't say because I have to let them guide them. I have to let them discover this on their own.
Right.
And when they say it, it's like, oh my gosh, like I so wanted to show you and tell you, like, you're probably stuck here, but they came to that conclusion.
Wow.
And so it's really just powerful. It's just so powerful, and letting people see their power and get connected with their truth and who they are. I don't know if that answers.
No, it totally does.
But
it totally does. I'm not a science-minded person. I'm definitely more on the art brain type. But that, to me, when I read how, our sense of smell is the only sense that can access where our trauma is stored, just blew my mind. And the fact that our subconscious is formed, I think, by age 6, right?
I believe so. Yeah, I hear that. I hear sometimes 7, I hear sometimes 6, but yeah.
So I think if we just go back and picture literally ourselves at 6 and 7, that's who's pretty much dictating our lives. Because what was the percentage you said that our subconscious controls?
It's usually about 95 to 98%.
Right.
So the rest of it, we're unconscious of what we're doing, which is mind blowing. It blows my mind every time I think of that.
It really is so crazy. So just smelling.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just smelling an essential oil, the fact that it's not just oh, that smells good, but it's truly accessing parts in your brain that without taking that breath, you might not be able to reach, is so profound to me. I'm just, oh my gosh.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things that essential oils are one of the very few things that can pass the blood-brain barrier in your mind, in your brain. So
yeah,
it's just, and then, I'm sure people listening maybe have heard, but that one drop of essential oil reaches every cell in your body within 20 minutes. And there's something I think it's 4 million. Oh, I'm going to mess up the numbers. There's some insane amount of molecules in one drop of essential oil. So supposedly 1 drop of essential oil can fill every cell in your body by 40 million or something molecule.
I have heard something like that.
Crazy, insane number. That's like a grain of sand. Anyways, it's just phenomenal how quickly they disperse and how much they affect and our body absorbs.
Right. Yeah, I had heard that before. Oh my gosh, it's amazing. Yeah, I'm stuck on that. That is so cool.
I wish I had the exact number. I should have saved it. I read it the other day and I was like, whoa, that's crazy.
I know. I'm so bad at retaining numbers. I'm always just this really high percentage or this big number. I'm so bad at retaining those, but I'm sure it's something that people could look up to find, right? How would you advise?
Sure. Yeah. I can't remember what book it was. I was reading, I don't know, some book I was reading. I have all these books that I have.
Yeah. Okay. So you were saying that you do sessions with people. Can you kind of talk about what does it mean to be an Aroma Freedom Technique practitioner?
Yeah, so I do one-on-one sessions, and then I also have an online community. It's a membership community where people, it was weird. Like one day I was just doing yoga and I was thinking like, how can I get this? Because I truly feel this has the power to impact the world and change us all on a
Mhm.
cellular level, and just have a trickle effect of such goodness. You know, when we heal ourselves, we heal those around us. And
Mhm.
I was doing yoga one day and just had this thought like, how can I get this out to people? And then this thought like, why don't you just put it online? Like, why don't you just make it like a guided meditation so that someone can just jump on whenever they need to? It's so frustrating when you need to do a session. You're like, oh, I have to book something and then it's going to be a week away and I need it
Mhm.
now. Like I'm stuck right now. I'm feeling procrastination right now. I'm feeling overwhelmed right
Yeah.
now. That's not going to help me next week. So I created this online platform where everything is audio recorded and they can just, anyone can just come in, plug and play and listen to an audio session to take them through either a boost, a trauma session, a craving session, a full aroma freedom session. And then we meet live twice a month and we will do an aroma freedom session live once a month and then a trauma session live as a group once a month. And then I also do one-on-one sessions. And the sessions are usually an hour to an hour and a half, depending on, the client and what people want to work on. But what I love about it is that, like I said, it's just guiding people through the steps and holding space for them and helping
Mhm.
them kind of implement the technique, because it is sometimes trying to do it on your own. You get kind of
Mhm.
stuck in your mind, or it's just sometimes it's not for me. I have someone that I work with every week and we meet and we do sessions together. When I try to do them on myself, it's helpful, but for some reason I don't have the breakthrough as I have when
Mhm.
I'm with somebody else and they're
Yeah.
like guiding me through it. So I basically just hold space for people and I just let them go through and uncover what they need to uncover. And it's beautiful. Like my old ways of like wanting to, put my input in or say, this, it's, I don't have to do that. And I don't get to do that anymore. And it's kind of freeing.
Yeah, I'm sure that's so beautiful to be a part of on the
Oh,
other end. And you're really a guide, right?
it is. I mean, I pinch myself. There's times where I end a session and I'm just crying in gratitude of like, how do I get to do this? Like, how do I get
Yeah,
to do this for people? It's just blowing my mind.
that's amazing.
Um, yeah, I had a mom who I was doing a session with, and she would wake up every morning and she dreaded getting up. She's like, I hate being a mom. I
Mhm.
hate to say that I hate being a mom, but I hate being a mom. I feel overwhelmed by it. I feel like I'm not good at it.
Mhm.
And we did 3 sessions and she is amazing. She's like, I love being a mom now. She's like, I
Oh,
can't even wrap my head around how this is even happening. She's like, I get up and I have so much excitement about the day and I'm present with my kids and I snuggle them and we do stuff and she bakes with them. And I'm like, this is what life's about right here, is
yeah.
giving,
Oh,
letting people experience this and find freedom and connection. It's what we all need and want.
right. And I think like what I find so beautiful about that is like it's not some magic potion. It's not some like, it's all like finding things within yourselves or within ourselves to like just unlock. It's things that are already there. I think that's like what is so beautiful to me is you don't need it's not as woo woo as it might sound to someone because it's like it's all within you. You just have to like
Yeah.
have these tools to unlock it. That's beautiful and hopeful.
Right. Yeah. Thinking that we are taught that it's outside of us, and we all are taught that you have to strive or be
Mhm.
something or show up differently or figure it out, when really all we have to do a lot of times is just let go
Yeah,
and tell a different story, like believe something different.
right. So, what is like your goal or hope for people when they do a session with you?
Oh, I just, my goal is every time is just that they experience some freedom and they
Mhm.
leave feeling empowered, they leave feeling lighter, which always happens. And it's just, it makes me so giddy. Like you just want to do a happy dance.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, that's just that they feel empowered to start showing up as a person they really want to be. We all have these dreams in our hearts and things that are written on our hearts for a reason, and we're all capable of achieving those things and showing up as that person. And I just want everyone to believe and know that they can,
Right.
and that
Yeah.
there's nothing standing in their way. Like
Mm-hmm.
there's nothing. I mean, other than that abusive voice in our head that
Mm-hmm.
tells us otherwise, because that's
Right.
really the only thing. I mean, are you gonna, there's story of which wolf do you feed or something, the fear or
Mm-hmm.
the one that, oh my gosh, I'm totally butchering it. Which one wins? Like, which wolf wins? There was like a good wolf and a bad wolf, and which is the one that's going to win? And it's like the one you feed or something like that.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I've
That
heard that.
there's a story. And here I am with all my whatever,
No,
but
you're
it's a great story. My dad used to always tell it to me, but it's whatever you choose to believe about yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. So your coaching business and online community is called Finding Freedom. And I think like what a perfect name.
Mhm.
Seriously. Like
Mhm.
you crushed
Yeah.
that
Oh,
because
thank you.
that's like, yeah, I'm sure that's what people experience with these sessions is freedom. So that's so perfect.
Yeah.
Who would AFT benefit besides literally everyone? But like, if someone's
Mhm.
listening and thinking like, is this for me? How would they know?
Um, I mean, you'd have to just try and
Hmm.
see, like you said, I mean, I truly don't know anyone that it wouldn't benefit, but someone who believes that, they want to start showing up differently in their life, or they have big things on their heart that they are feeling stuck on or resistance towards. If someone who is maybe struggling in their personal relationships or finances, someone who just, I don't know, I don't want to call them dreamers, because you're not really a dreamer. I'm like, you have these dreams and these wishes on your heart, but yeah, people that just want to start showing up differently, that want to make an impact in the world, that want to show up as their best version of themselves, would be
Yeah.
would be for.
Yeah, that's so good. I feel like it literally is like everyone because we all have these struggles or these beliefs that we think are real because our subconscious is telling us so. But
I will say that, it does take a certain person to want to, because there are people who feel like, oh, it's okay, I'm good, I have it all, and some people do, I'm not saying that some people don't, but I think there is sometimes a resistance, and I think that there is a willingness that is needed, because it
mhm,
isn't easy. I mean, it
right.
isn't easy to address some of these hurts and things, but the good thing about it with the oils, what I love so much is that when you go through it, you go through a session, but you come out the other side of the session. It's not, a lot of times in therapy or even in my 12-step work, I would be feeling these emotions and dredging up all this stuff for like months and months at a
Mhm,
time, and I was stuck in it. Whereas with AFT, you bring it up in a session, you clear it in a session, and you're free from it in a session, where
right.
you're not having to drag it out forever. So it's kind of a quick, it's just quicker. It's like a Band-Aid.
Yeah.
Although I will say that you want to keep showing up and working. It's not like overnight, these things, you acquire these stories and these habits in your life over a lifetime. So you want to kind of show up just like you would exercise or
Mhm.
eating healthy or anything like that. Keeping your emotional life in check and just checking in with yourself regularly is super important. But there has to be a willingness, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, no, that's definitely I could see that for sure. And I think like you reminded me of like I feel like the self-help and self-care and doing inner work, it's a good thing that it's like I don't want to say popular, but I feel like it's popular right now. It
Yeah.
is a good thing that it's being focused on, but I also think I don't love it being like trendy, like, oh, it's fun. Because
Mhm.
I loved what you said, like, it is hard. It's not this like fun, like, I'm gonna work through my trauma. It's hard. And I'm sure, like, I mean, I wouldn't even say I did like an AFT session because I just was like holding my book and a notebook and was like, what am I even doing? But even just by myself with the book, probably doing it half wrong, I was like crying. So I can't imagine doing it with a professional, a practitioner who like can really guide me. So I liked that you said like it is hard, it's work. It's not just like, this fun sprinkle some oils on yourself and you're
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah. But the stuff on the outside, like the outcome is so worth it.
So
And
worth
it's
it.
so freeing. And you get to a point where if I don't do a session each week, I'm like, oh my gosh, I need a session. Like you start
Mhm.
feeling the difference of what it feels like to be free of that stuff. And then, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so true. Okay, so what can people like expect to happen, come up following their first session? Whether it's like a ton of emotion or like what if people feel nothing? Or does that not happen?
Yeah, absolutely. It all happens. So one of the emotions or things that happen, and this happened to me in sessions, my first session, I will say I was a hot mess. I had like literal snot, just like I was not pretty.
Mhm.
And afterwards, I will say that I felt exhausted and I thought, how do people do this? People actually want to do this. And
Mhm.
how do you come back next week and do this every week? This is too much. And this was honestly after years, 20 years of 12-step program and therapy. And I still had this stuff that I had to purge. And
Mhm.
I had no idea. I thought that I was past it all. But after that first session, I have never had a session like that since. I have had emotional sessions, but nothing that took me out the way that first session did. So
Mhm.
people could have something that's very emotional and very heavy, but then there could be any other sessions where they feel numb, so they feel nothing. And I've had sessions like that as well, where I literally have no feeling, because numb is actually a protection, a defense mechanism from things that are scary or overwhelming or feel too big.
Mhm.
So there's a whole range of, you can feel everything, from nothing to a ton. I would recommend people just keep going and try, 6 sessions, 3 to 6 times, even if you're doing it on your own, listening, reading the book, or however you want to do it. That what happens is when you start letting go of all these things that you've been carrying around, we all call it baggage. I guess that's like people know what that means, right? Like we all
Mhm.
have our baggage. As soon as you start letting go of that baggage, you're free, and then you're able to just have quicker sessions. A lot of sessions, I hardly ever cry anymore. I don't have stuff that really comes up or takes me out, hardly ever. So over time, it gets less and less. That's not to say that you won't have a big session, like emotional session again down the road, but for the most part, you can expect, honestly, the gamut.
Wow. So interesting. Okay, so let's kind of talk. We talked a little bit about the one blend that you used during a session, which was the memory release blend of frankincense, stressway, and lavender. What other oils are used throughout the AFT sessions?
Yeah, so the first one is the memory release that you mentioned, and then inner child, which is a young living blend. There's so many oils in that, beautiful oils, but a lot of them is like
Yeah.
jasmine, lemon, those kind of citrusy oils.
Hmm.
And then release is the other oil. And
Oh.
then there's transformation, and then believe.
Hmm.
Those are the main oils that he recommends. But then Trauma Life, I swear by Trauma Life, I love that oil
Me
so much. So I
too.
use those in the sessions a lot. Um,
Yeah.
I use Highest Potential. I'll use rosemary sometimes. But any oil that you're feeling drawn to and I will say that, when I did get trained through Dr. Benjamin Purkis, he did say, you need to use Young Living
Hmm.
oils. I know that there are other brands out there as well, which his only disclaimer is that he can't guarantee results from it,
Hmm. Yeah.
just because he doesn't know the quality or the purity, and he doesn't know the blend makeup of
Hmm.
them.
Hmm.
So it is recommended to use those, but no one's going to hold anybody's feet to the fire if they want
Yeah.
to try what they have.
Yeah. Yeah, those blends are just, oh my goodness, so many. Inner Child, I actually have here. And if the Young Living listeners out there, like if you've never smelled Inner Child, it's incredible. And when I first got it, I was like wearing it like perfume. This was probably like 2 or 3 years ago. And someone in my life who I'm like very close to, I was like, oh, you have to smell this oil. And she was like, it smells like feces. And I was like, what? I think it smells like the most beautiful bouquet of flowers, you know? I was like, what, how are we smelling the same thing? And she's like, it smells like poop, like a dirty diaper. And I was so confused. And then later that, like, I was just kind of like, okay, she's crazy. And then later that night, I realized she had a very, very traumatic childhood. And it just like got me thinking all over again about like how, you know, essential oils and our sense of smell reaching where trauma is stored. And I was like, how interesting that I smell like these florals that make me really happy. And she's smelling like something really traumatic. And I just thought that that was like so crazy to me. And it just like, just again, I'm sorry if I'm like sharing a gross example story, but but it's just like I just really feel like that shows that when you're using like pure actual therapeutic grade oils, like it's not just like, oh, that smells good. It's like this is reaching our brain and doing different things to people with different experiences. I don't know. I could talk forever about it.
No,
but
it is so true. It's like that thing they say, you know, and you hear it. I don't know if everyone's heard it, but that thing of like, if you smell an oil and you're repulsed by it, it means you really need it.
Mhm.
And that happened to me a lot. I mean, when I first smelled Stress Away, it smells so good now. But when I first smelled Stress Away and Peace and Calming, I could not stand those oils. I was like, get them away from me.
Yeah.
But I love them now. And I have a lot more peace and less stress in my life. So it's interesting.
It really is. Okay, so we're gonna do like a mini reset because we were talking and we figured we shouldn't do a whole AFT session on the podcast because then we wouldn't be able to talk about what it is and get the questions. But we're gonna do a little reset. And so kind of before we do that, can you just tell us, I know you've touched on it, but just like what it is, what we would need to jump into it. I know a lot of people listen to podcasts like while driving or like, so just kind of like set the tone of what would be needed for us to participate in this.
Yeah. So, I mean, definitely, I would recommend not be driving.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can maybe pause if you're driving and then come back and listen to it another time.
Mm-hmm.
If you wanted to somewhat, you know, breathe in or try it while you are, but obviously don't close your eyes.
Yeah.
I don't know how it would actually work without doing that though. So yeah, definitely while you're driving, just pause and come back.
Mm-hmm.
But so this is a reset. This can be done. I have done this in the middle of my kitchen with kids screaming all around, you know, noise going on, to get myself grounded and centered. It is helpful for if you're feeling any feelings of overwhelm or some emotion that's feeling a bit negative that you're wanting to process or move through.
Mm-hmm.
I will say that this is something that's typically done in between an Aroma Freedom session or a trauma and memory release session, almost like a refresher or just to kind of keep your energy up, keep your, you know, frequencies up, your mind, your heart, all that stuff. So if you are doing a reset for the first time, you may experience strong emotion that you may want to go back and do an Aroma Freedom session or a trauma session if it feels like something that you're not able to move through. But for the most part, we're not going to bring up too crazy of a thing.
Okay.
If you find yourself feeling a lot of emotion, try to get an AFT session or a trauma session in to kind of help you move through that.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But this is going to help shift your energy and shift the emotion so that it doesn't have such a strong charge.
Okay. I'm so excited. I'm like nervous. But in a good way. In a good way.
It's actually really simple. This is a simple one. Don't be nervous.
Okay.
Nothing too crazy. I promise you won't have snot and like all this.
I know I'm here like with a microphone recording.
Yeah.
It's like
I will say that it is good to have a notebook and notepad or something nearby if you can, just to kind of write whatever comes up for you if you want. If you have tissue, you can have them around. And then that's it. You would need frankincense, stress away, and lavender.
Okay.
And that's the only oil that we use for a reset. If you don't have frankincense, stress away, and lavender, you can grab any oil that you're feeling drawn to, any of the emotional oils like the blue and the purple kind of oils, or any oil that you have on hand. I will say though, please make sure that it is of a young living quality, not something that you get off of a store shelf or something, for that there's a lot of toxins in those and I don't want to send them to your brain.
Yeah, for sure.
Out of your brain.
Yeah. And this would be perfect, you guys, for listeners to you can save a link to a podcast in the notes in your phone. And I think just kind of note the timestamp of when Kristen is doing this reset. And like she said, she does this in the kitchen when her kids are being crazy. So you can, if you save the link, you can just reference back when you need a reset. And maybe if you're finding that you need it a lot, to maybe do a session with her.
I'll give you the link if they want to, try. You can put it in the notes or something.
Definitely.
But yeah, definitely come back and reference this, and it's great. You'll love it. It's a great little tool to have. So.
Yay.
Get out of that.
Okay.
All right. So the first thing you're going to do is identify the situation or the thing that you're thinking about that is causing you to feel a certain way. So if there's a situation happening or something in your life right now that is causing overwhelm or usually a negative emotion or thought. Okay. So when you have that, you don't have to necessarily say it out loud or tell me. You can just let me know when you have it.
Okay. I have it.
Okay. So when you think of that memory or thought, what is the emotion, or how intense is it feeling for you when you think of it on a scale of 0 to 10?
Probably I feel like I'm at a 5, but I feel like I'm at a 5 because I'm being recorded. So I feel like I'm putting up a wall a little bit, but so should I be intense? Yeah, it could feel more intense. Should I answer or no?
Yeah. You answer. I'll walk you through it. And then if someone's listening at home, just do the same thing. So answer. Yeah.
Okay. That sounds good. Yeah. I feel like it's a 5, 6 around there.
Okay. And so the key here too is to go with that very first number that comes up and just trust your intuition. And so you can write that number down if you're at home, just so you can kind of reference, you want to get that number down low. So that'll just be our guide for you or for whoever's doing the session.
Okay.
So now that you've identified how strong it's feeling, now can you identify what the emotion is? So when you think of the event or the whatever you're thinking about, what is that one word emotion that comes up when you think of it?
I would say fear.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then where are you feeling that fear in your body?
Definitely my belly.
Okay, good. And if you're listening at home, sometimes people are like, well, what do you mean by where do I feel it? That's weird. And usually it's like a tightness or a sensation, maybe even a tingling. Just kind of, sometimes you may need to close your eyes and just feel where am I feeling sensation or tension in my body?
Okay.
So you're feeling it in your belly.
Yes.
And it could be multiple places too, just for those listening. So you could be in your belly or in your, wherever. So wherever you're feeling it in your body, and then what is the thought that comes up? You don't have to share it out loud if you don't want to share it here, but just what is the thought coming up as you think of that memory? And you can tell me when you have it, or if you want to share it, it's totally
okay. I have it. I have it.
All right, so you're going to grab a drop of frankincense, stress away, and lavender. And if you are doing this at home, like you had mentioned, you can put them in a pre-made roller and just do equal parts. So you can do 20 drops frankincense, 20 drops stress away, 20 drops of lavender.
Yeah.
And I put one of those roller filaments on and I just roll it around. But
Yeah.
all right, so once you have that, you're going to put it in your palm and then bring your hands up to your nose and your mouth. And then just breathe into that emotion. So you're going to breathe into the feeling with your eyes closed, just breathing into that sensation in your stomach or wherever you're feeling it. And breathing into that thought that you had when you thought of the event. And just staying present with your breath and just breathing in. Just noticing any changes. And you're just going to stay present with your breath until you feel a shift in some way.
So good. Yeah, I
So this
definitely feel it.
What did you notice?
I felt like lighter almost.
Mhm.
Yeah, it just feels like, I don't know. I want to say like beautiful, but that's not like a feeling. But I just feel like almost like seen and understood, kind of, even if that's like by myself.
Mhm. Yeah, it's good. It lessens the charge of whatever,
Yeah,
it takes the heaviness out of life. It just lightens you
it
out a bit.
does. And I will say, like, I feel like with meditation, sometimes it's so hard for me to focus with meditation. And I feel like with that, the reset that you just did, like, I felt like I could actually listen to what you were saying and stay on task to what you
Mm,
were saying and what you were asking of me because of the essential oils. Like, smelling them kind of really grounded me into your words.
It
Um,
gives you an action to do, right? When you're breathing
yeah.
and on the smell. Yeah.
hmm
So let's do another round for those at home if they want to replay this back.
Okay.
Where are you at now on a scale of 1 to 10? I remember 10 being like this feeling or whatever you're thinking about is feeling really intense, and 0 being not at all.
I would say like 3, 4 now. I feel like even though I said a 5, I do think it was the feeling is more like 6, 7 range. I think I just had a guard up from being like recorded, but I do feel like an intense shift down to like 3, 4 range.
Okay, good. All right, so let's think about that image again, or that thought, or whatever it is that's causing you upset. And then identify what the feeling is now. So when you think of it, how does it make you feel?
Should I tell you?
Yeah, you can just tell me the
Okay.
one word expression.
I feel like now it's kind of almost like content.
Hmm. Okay, so you're feeling good. You don't have a negative feeling when you think of it.
Yeah, it's more like content. There is like still a little like fear, but
Okay, so then let's go with that.
okay.
So let's go with we want to get the anything that's keeping us at a 3 or a 5, not at
Mhm,
like, oh, I feel totally fine, I'm good.
mhm.
Go with that thing. So if it's fear again, that's absolutely fine. So
Okay.
we'll stick with that, and just again trusting that first emotion for whoever's at home listening. Just go with that very first emotion that comes up, even if it seems unrelated.
Okay.
So then, now that you have that fear identified, again, just checking in again, it may still be in your stomach, it may not, but just do a quick inventory and see where you're feeling fear in your body.
I feel like now it's in my chest for me.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. So now you're going to grab your frankincense, stress away, and lavender again, or any oil that you're feeling drawn to. If you want to do that, you're welcome to play around.
Okay. And if people don't have like all 3, let's say they just have 2, can they just use the 1 or 2 that they have?
You can definitely play around and try and see
Mhm.
and how it works. Definitely recommend it to use the blend if you can.
Yeah,
But
for
by
sure.
all means, if you have just the one, don't not do it because you just have the one. It will
Yeah.
definitely still help you.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so you're gonna breathe in. And again, just closing your eyes and just letting yourself just breathe into that emotion. Checking in with yourself, breathing into your chest or wherever you're feeling the emotion now. Breathing into the thought that's coming up as you think of the upsetting event or whatever's on your heart and mind. Just staying present to it and just noticing what's coming up for you, almost like watching clouds float by or watching a movie. You're just going to observe and notice. And keep breathing in until you feel a shift or change in the intensity in some way.
Wow. Yeah, I feel like for me, it's like moving up my body.
Mm-hmm. It's good. It's good to, it really grounds us and gets us present, like in our body, opposed to
Yeah.
so it's good that you're able to identify. Sometimes it's a little tricky. So if you're at home listening, our programs sometimes to be so disconnected from our emotions and so disconnected from our bodies that it can be hard for some to identify the feelings.
Mm-hmm.
But I promise you, the more you keep trying and keep coming back to this, eventually you'll be able to identify and be like, oh, okay, I feel this here. I'm feeling this emotion. Men sometimes have a harder time because I feel like they were conditioned a little bit more to not feel so much. So I think this is a little easier for it.
Mm-hmm.
Keep practicing. And I love how intuitive you already are, which
Thank
I knew you would be, but for someone at home, you may be struggling, and that's okay. Just stick with it.
Yeah, definitely don't feel like you're doing it wrong or anything if you're not
Right.
feeling it. So first of all, thank you for that. That was
You're
amazing.
so welcome. So how are you feeling now? So we did that. And how do you, when you picture the image, do you feel a charge at all, or
It's like, yeah, definitely like way more content, where before it was like, ooh, I don't want to even like go there type thing.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely like more content and almost like I have more control over the situation or my feelings or something.
Mm-hmm. Good. That's
And
great.
like I said, it was weird to go from like my stomach to my chest and then like almost I could feel it like in my throat almost. And I will say for people listening, I've tried to do that, like feel it in your body before. And I struggled with that like the first time. So I just, yeah, I don't want my, me having it come easy to me to find like the physical part. Sometimes that is hard for me too. So I just wanted to say that.
Clarity oil, I will say, is helpful with that as well.
Okay.
So if you are feeling struggle or stuck, a drop of clarity and just kind of checking in sometimes can help as well.
Okay.
And then know that numbness is a feeling and feeling nothing, numb, is an emotion. So just breathe into that and just breathe into, I'm feeling closed off, I'm feeling numb, I'm feeling disconnected. And then the oils will help you process so you can break through that barrier.
Wow. Okay. So how can people like get a session with you? How can they get into Finding Freedom, your community group? Tell us like all the details on that.
Yeah. Well, my website is kristenmaple.com, so they can contact me there for one-on-one sessions. I also have a link there to my Finding Freedom membership where they can, join the community and do live sessions with me, twice a month, and then listen to the audios every day if they'd like. And I'm happy to share a link for you if you want to put it in the notes.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
And then I'm on Instagram at Grayson Farm and on YouTube as Kristen Maple.
Perfect. Okay, so let's do some rapid fire before we hop off, unrelated to our topic. So rapid fire, what is your Enneagram number?
I am a 7.
A 7. I'm a 6.
Are you?
Yes.
Yeah, it's
so fun.
It's great. Yeah, it is. It's mind blowing to learn.
It really is.
And like, oh my gosh, that's why I do that.
Yeah. And I feel like this crazy person, when I meet someone who doesn't know their Enneagram, I feel like I need to like hold myself back because I'm just like, oh, you have to learn it. And I just feel like, okay, calm down so you don't scare them. But it is so good.
It's helpful in your relationships too, to understand the other person. And my husband's like, oh, now I understand why you're like that.
Yeah. Same.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Fill in the blank for this one. I wish I could tell my younger self blank.
I wish I can tell my younger self to just to not worry so much about the outside and what people think, or,
Mhm.
that I was enough, that
Yes.
I have all it takes, that I have everything I need to, we have it all in us. Each and every one of us has everything that we need to, and we're already enough as we are right now, we
Yes.
don't need to add anything more. Just let go.
Yes. So good. If you're listening and you, not your younger self, but your current self needs that, I hope you take it. Okay, what is your late night guilty pleasure snack?
Mm. Okay, well, I have two, and I will say last night before I went, it's like very strange. I don't normally do a huge snacker before at night, but I love vinegar chips. I don't know what
Mm.
it is, like the Trader Joe's vinegar chips, like potato vinegar and salt.
Oh, so good.
Very strange, but I love those. And but my all-time guilty pleasure is Honey Mamas. I don't know if you've had Honey
Oh,
Mamas.
I haven't. What is
Oh
that?
my gosh, they are so good. It's a like a sweet, chocolatey, just goodness, but it's all healthy. So there's coconut, almond, dates, and like honey. And
Oh,
I think that's about it. Maybe him, yeah, and that's it. But it tastes like the best kind of cake fudge. I
oh
don't
my
even know. And you
goodness.
only need a small little bit and you're satisfied. You don't get
Oh,
that insatiable craving of like
yeah.
that sugar thing that happens when you eat sugar. It's
Mhm.
just, my husband bought me, I think, about 12 of them for my birthday. It's
I
like,
love that.
yeah.
Honey Mamas. I'm gonna have to look this up. I'm gonna have to have them.
Yes. You can only get them online or at certain health food stores, but they will change your life.
Oh, okay. Well, that is amazing. Well, thank you so much. This has been so good. And I like essential oils have always been so interesting to me, but this was like a home run. Just
Mhm.
plants are so rad. So
Oh,
thank you for doing the work that you're doing and for coming on the show. And you
thank
guys,
you.
put I will put Kristen's link to her website and how to get in touch with her to have a session or her community group right in the show notes for you.
Mm.
But thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you for having me on, and thank you for sharing this with people, because just, getting this out there is just doing such a beautiful work. And I can't wait to, I love the thought of lives being transformed and changed with these beautiful gifts that we all have right at our fingertips. And
Yes.
it's going to open up a whole new world for people. So I'm excited to share it and people know about it now.
Yes. Thank you.